have 26 cars ready to go for 50 laps. Being paced around by the Toyota Super Silica pace car. As they come up into turn number 3, it's up to...
Welcome to another episode of the Lost Racetracks of Los Angeles. Did you know that Los Angeles was once completely covered in legendary racetracks? Today, most of these tracks are gone, and all that is left is old photos and film. Many of these old tracks were shut down after multiple fatalities, but the legend of these tracks continues. Today I will explore the history and visit the site of 3 legendary SoCal tracks. First, I will visit the hills of the Legion Ascot Speedway, a legendary track from the 1920s. After that, I will visit the site of Ascot Park Raceway, originally known as the Los Angeles Speedway. Make sure to stick around to the end, as I will visit a third track many of you may not know about, the Dodger Stadium track. Welcome to Waste Media. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Today's story begins in the roaring 1920s at Legion Ascot Speedway. It opened on January 20th, 1924 as a 5/8 mile dirt oval track designed for high-speed racing in El Sereno along Soto Street. It would later expand to also include a 5-mile road course. Today, the exact location of the oval is occupied by an elementary school and a residential neighborhood. The track was originally called New Ascot Speedway, but after the American Legion took it over in 1927, it was renamed to Legion Ascot Speedway. Many legendary drivers like Bill Cummings, Wilbur Shaw, and Rex Mays raced here for prizes that could reach up to $800, enough to buy a house in Los Angeles at the time. Races were held on Sundays and Wednesday nights, and attendance often exceeded 10,000 people. Even Hollywood stars would often visit the tracks, like Charlie Chaplin, Clark Gable, and Bing Crosby. In 1932, racer Wilbur Shaw debuted the first ever racing helmet at Legion Ascot. He was initially mocked by the fans, but the helmet later saved his life during a crash. The Legion Ascot Speedway was nicknamed the Killer Track because of its deadly reputation. Over 24 fatalities occurred during its 12 years of operation, many occurring at the infamous death curve. By the mid-1930s, the decline of Legion Ascot had begun. The rise of smaller and more affordable midget car racing slowly began to draw away fans.
America lifts the curtain on a new sport, midget auto racing on a bank board track. It's a combination of the wall of death and speedway on 4 wheels as the gas buggy pilots blast their way round.
In 1936, a fatal crash involving Al Gordon and his riding mechanic Spider Matlock marked the end of the track's racing era. 8 months after the final races at Legion Ascot were held, the grandstands were destroyed in a fire that was started by a former employee who confessed years later that he wanted to prevent further deaths. Welcome to Ascot Park, originally known as Los Angeles Speedway, opened in 1957 in the site of a former landfill in Gardena. It was renamed Ascot Park in 1961. The park featured a half-mile dirt oval with tight semi-banked turns and long straightaways. It also featured a small 0.2-mile inner oval for motorcycle and smaller car events. Ascot Park held 3 NASCAR Grand National, now known as Cup Series, events in 1957, 1958, and 1961. Not only was this a cornerstone of American motorsports, but even the legendary Evel Knievel performed his first televised jump here, clearing 15 cars and launching his stunt career into the national spotlight.
The crowd has their eyes riveted on a young man by the name of Evel Knievel, who is set and ready in his yellow Daredevil leathers and new racing helmet to attempt the leap over 15 cars. You saw J.C.
The park was also famous for its appearances in film and television, including Gone in 60 Seconds, Chips, and Very Brady Christmas. Despite its popularity and success, Ascot Park faced mounting challenges in the 1980s. Larger venues like Riverside International Raceway and Ontario Motor Speedway began to overshadow it. Attendance started to drop, and by 1990 the track could no longer keep up. The 50th annual Turkey Night Grand Prix in November 1990 marked the end of an era. After more than 5,000 races, Ascot Park closed its gates for good. Today there is no visible trace of the iconic dirt oval. The site has been replaced by a car auction lot. It's interesting to see so many cars parked side by side over the grounds of one of the most famous of all Southern California racetracks, a piece of land that even 35 years after its closure is still tied to the automotive industry. They used to say, quote, "If you could win at Ascot, you could win anywhere in the world," end quote. And it's true. Ascot Park was a track where legends were made, where the line between triumph and tragedy was razor thin, and where fans gathered to witness the best of motorsport. This is the Dodger Stadium circuit, something I didn't know about until recently when I was reading the comments from my previous Lost Racetracks video. The Dodger Stadium hosted races in the early 1960s. Dodger Stadium opened in 1962, becoming the home of the Los Angeles Dodgers. But in its early years, the massive parking lot wasn't just for baseball fans. In 1963, the California Sports Car Club turned it into a 1.6-mile temporary road course. The circuit was designed with 7 turns, elevation changes of up to 100 feet, and a mix of straight and sharp bends. It even featured a challenging S-curve at turn 1, followed by a downhill straightaway and an uphill climb to turns 6 and 7. It was a compact yet technical track that challenged drivers at every corner. The Dodger Stadium circuit came alive on March 2nd and 3rd, 1963, with sports car races sponsored by the California Sports Car Club. Fans flocked to see high-performance cars and skilled drivers navigate the tight and twisting layout of this makeshift racetrack. Interestingly, racing wasn't the only unusual event held at Dodger Stadium in its early days. The stadium also hosted ski jumping exhibitions, boxing matches, basketball games featuring the Harlem Globetrotters, and even one of the Beatles' final concerts. Despite the excitement, the Dodger Stadium circuit didn't last long. Racing in a parking lot had its challenges. There were safety concerns for both drivers and spectators, as well as logistical issues with setting up and tearing down the temporary course. And as Dodger Stadium grew into its role as a baseball landmark, its focus shifted entirely to America's favorite pastime. The road races became a forgotten footnote in the stadium's history. From the infamous Legion Ascot to the legendary Ascot Park, and even the surprising Dodger Stadium circuit. 3 more of Southern California's forgotten racetracks that slowly vanished. All we have now is photos and in some cases films. But the influence that Southern California has had on racing is larger than many realize. Thanks for watching. See you next time.